Welcome to the Beautifully Booked podcast, where we talk all things spa and massage. Adeena Wagner and Alicia Crook are like-hearted businesswomen that connected from across the globe to collaborate on all things beauty, body, and business. They now work with business owners all over the world to run better businesses, make more money, and most importantly, live life on their terms. By sharing the highs and lows of their work and lives and offering insights from their hands-on business experience, this show will deep dive into the successes and struggles of the spa and massage industry. Now, here are your hosts, Adeena and Alicia.
My name is Adeena Wagner, and I'm a licensed esthetician and business coach who helps beauty biz practitioners go from stressed to six-figure success.
Hi, my name is Alicia Crook. I'm a radial massage therapist and business coach specifically for the massage industry. I ran a massage clinic for 16 years, making mistakes and learning from them along the way. I'm a published author and now work with massage therapists all over the world to become fully booked without getting burnt out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to our podcast. We are so excited and thankful that you guys are here. I am here with the amazing Alicia Crook, and today we have such a great episode lined up for you. We're going to be talking about how to hire, when to know it's time to hire, and some areas that might be coming up in your skin and body treatment center where you know you need to outsource. So welcome, Alicia.
Hey, Adeena, it's so excited to be back with you in the chair podcasting today. I'm super excited to be able to talk a bit about this. It's not something we've shared too much about yet on this podcast, so I think it's going to be fun.
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of times people kind of have that, they're at a certain spot in their business and they feel this tension where they're wearing all the hats and doing all the things. Hashtag all the things is really popular here right now. And they really want to hire, but there's so many unknowns. What would you say to someone let's start with, what would you say to someone who is thinking about hiring and not sure if they're at the right phase in their business to start hiring?
Look, I think that when you're looking at hiring, it's good to be about 70% booked yourself as a minimum and know how and why you're booked. So for example, if you've just been in one spot for ages and you've got word of mouth and referrals, or you're working at a clinic, great, but it means that you don't know how to actually attract clients in. And I think it's really important because when you go to hire, you're not going to be able to rely on word of mouth and referrals anymore for the new hire. You're going to need to understand how to market that person so that you can market into your current community and new people that you're going to invite in. And you need to know how to do that. So I think as a minimum, you need to be 70% booked. And that's usually enough to kind of get you through, particularly if you know how and why you're doing it, because you understand the way to market.
I want to talk about the how and the why and get you to explain that. But I want to just interject a little bit. I love that you said 70% because that's the same number that I tell our coaching clients. And let me tell you, my thinking behind that is when you're about 70% booked, it's going to then take you some time to find that perfect. You don't want to be where you're so maxed out at 100%, where you don't have the time or energy to hire someone to give that time for that training. So when you guys are about 70%, that kind of gives you that little bit of that runway left. You know, the plane is on the runway and it's going, it's gaining momentum. And it's finally, those feet are going to kind of, what do they call them? The feet, the wheels?
Wheels, you get the wheels up off the ground.
Are going to come up and finally come off the ground. That's right about, you know, in your spa business, your massage skin therapy business, body business, right about that 70%. So you want to give yourself that chance to have time to advertise, to seek that perfect person without feeling rushed or pressured. And then once you find that person, let's say it takes you 2 weeks or a month, you want to have that extra leeway of time to actually get them trained as well. So kudos. I love that you said 70%. So let's get your input on, I think you said the how and the why.
Yeah. Like I think marketing is, we've talked about taking action in your marketing and branding and things like that. And I think that you need to know, how do you communicate effectively so that you can get clients? And what I mean by that is you put something out on Facebook or you put out an ad or something like that, and the phones are going to go hot. great. You know that your marketing is effective. If you know how to use Google, or you know how to use Instagram, or you're using your text messaging, like regardless of what it is, you need some channels of ways that you communicate effectively to be able to attract clients in. Word of mouth and referrals is great because they're very high trust build, but it's hard to say to your clients, can you just tell everyone how amazing I am? Because it feels super icky, and it is. There's ways that you can do it through, 5-star reviews and Google and all kind of stuff. Great. But we want to make sure that you understand the levers in marketing to be able to attract new clients in, so that you can then market your actual staff members. I think something that's really important to talk about is when you're attracting staff in. We often talk about niche, or we call it niche here in Australia. I know you call it niche there, that you have a niche, or niches that you work with, like clients. You're like, these are the kind of people I want to work with. I actually think you should niche your staff. And what I mean by that is get super clear on who you want to work with. If you are sort of someone who's incredibly punctual, and you have an eye for detail, and you have excellence in customer service, then you want to attract somebody into your business who is like that, rather than somebody who perhaps has more cavalier, relaxed style energy, because that's going to really annoy the crap out of you.
Right.
You want to get really clear on what kind of therapist. You don't just want a piece of paper and a pulse. You want a specific criteria of person to come and work with you. And sometimes it's a reflection of who you are. Like for me, I talk a lot, I've got a lot of energy. So I wanted people like that in my clinic, but not every person I hired was like that, because it would be like, you need a talking stick to say good morning. Like we needed some balance in there as well. But certainly at the start, the first couple of hires were very much a reflection of who I am and who I was as a practitioner back then. And I think that's what then helped kind of the cohesion in the clinic. And I love the idea of being able to niche your staff, get really clear on who it is you want to attract into your business before you go out to the marketplace and say, all right, I've got a position available, let's go. Get really clear on who it is that you want.
I love that. Getting clear on who it is you want to hire. And I would add to that, getting clear on what it is specifically, like a job description, you want them to do. I can't tell you how many times we're coaching, spa clients or who own their own businesses, right? And they say, Adeena, I already have like 3 employees, or I'm ready to hire my first employee. One of the first questions I ask is, okay, great. What is it you want them to do? Well, I think I want them to answer the phone and maybe do a little social media for me. If I had $1 for those, are like the 2 things: answer the phone and do a little social media for me. Do basically a couple of things, like turn over the room maybe, or do some of the services that I don't like to do. Basically, they want that person to be the jack of all trades, but it sounds very vague. And so when you are ready to hire and you're at that 70% level, you've really got to step up more as a leader, because that person that you hire is looking to you for direction. And I don't know, one thing for me is when we're talking about working smart and playing harder, there would be nothing more frustrating than to come out from a treatment and the person that you hired is on her phone. But maybe she's on her phone because you didn't give her clear directions on what you want her to do from 8 to 10, from 10 to 12, from take a lunch break, and then from, 2 to 4. Breaking down those job descriptions and those things that you want done. If it's very vague, guess what? You're going to get very vague work ethic. You're going to get very vague work done, and you're going to not get very vague. You're going to be very clear on how much money is going out through payroll. So it's not going to really make it worth your while. So I love that you said that. And I hope that by me adding this part and getting really clear on what it is specifically they want them to do as a whole, but then even breaking that down into more from generalities to specifics, and then even going specific to how many days a week they want them to do such and such, and by what hours of the day. And if you can really fill someone in, a lot of times I've seen clients, have you seen clients where when I say clients, I mean our coaching clients, where they just want to hire someone and think, I need someone here 40 hours a week. I say, no. Start slow, start part-time, start 15 hours a week, maybe 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 5 hours, maybe 5 days for 3 hours, but just see how they do with what you've given them. And if that's enough to keep them busy so that you're not wasting money, you're keeping more money in your pocket, you're able to make more money, and you're able to offload or delegate the things that really aren't your zone of genius, that really don't float your boat.
And I think there's sort of probably two hires you can have. You can hire a practitioner or an esthetician who actually does a similar service to you or services you don't want to do, or you can hire an admin. I think what's important is to not hire a therapist and expect them to do admin. Not that they can't, but if their sole purpose for being there is to be a therapist, then you have to pay them a therapist rate, whether that's a percentage or you've employed them or however you're choosing to do it. So it's going to cost you more at the end of the day to have that therapist sitting there not treating and then doing admin for you. And also, if you've got an admin, you don't have to have them, like you said, 40 hours a week. So normally when I'm talking to our therapists, we might get one or two therapists working first so that there's cash flow coming in. And I think one of the big mistakes I see people make is that they ignore all the little things that really annoy them for about 6 months. And then they just explode over one thing. Like they come out of the room and the therapist is sitting on their phone and that's it. They just like, oh. And so what I actually teach our therapists to do is to flip that and almost, not quite, but almost micromanage as you establish your systems and your standard. So if you have a standard of no phones around the reception area, because this is where we serve. So all phones need to be, unless you're on a break, need to be on silent airplane mode in your bag. And that was a standard that we had at our clinic. Now we had that standard because I was sick of seeing staff sitting around on their phones, because this is an open space and clients could see. There wasn't a lot of private spaces for us to hang. For example, I had one staff member rock up to work one day and she just had a spray tan. And you know that kind of strange smell that you get when you have a spray tan? Yeah. Like, don't come to work smelling like that. You come the next day, I look beautiful, fabulous. I loved it. I love them, but not. That's it. You go home and you just don't see the world looking and smelling like that. So we had to have one of our conversations around that. The top drawer always had a nail file. It had nail clippers. It had BO basher, deodorant and breath mints, because there's nothing worse than you're over a client and all they can smell is the fact that you had tuna and onions for lunch. And I hate that.
Carne asada burritos. Carne asada burritos.
You're like, oh, this is not good. This is not good. So we got to make sure so the reason that we had those was because one of our values was to raise the professional standard of massage. And one of our ways of outworking that was to ensure personal hygiene was kept to a high standard. This is just one tiny little thing that I wanted to pull out of it, because this is how you implement it. And we have this model called ESIP, which stands for environment, structure, implementation, and people. And my first coach taught me that our staff will only ever be 80% of us on a good day. Right. So first of all, if we rock up and we're like exhausted and over it and frazzled, then our staff are only going to be a reflection of that. And they're only going to be 80% of that. So we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to stay centered and to come to work 100% ready to rock every time, because then our staff can be 80% of that. And so with this ESIP model, it looks at how we create our environment. And this includes things like branding and cleanliness and, gorgeous things. I liken it to a cafe. You go to a cafe sometimes and you don't even know why, but you just feel like you're loved. Like you feel like part of the family. You walk in there, the coffee's great, it smells good, it looks beautiful, and you just feel like you belong. And you walk into another cafe down the road and the coffee might be just as good. Like if we're talking, I'm from Melbourne, so the coffee capital of the world, we think it's a self-title we give ourselves. And so coffee snobs, and you walk in, the coffee's just the same, but there's something about it that you feel like you're in the way. And you can't really explain it, right? That's the environment. Another way I describe this is that you wouldn't wear bikinis to church. Why? Because you just know it's the wrong environment for it. No one has to say, oh, by the way, we wear actual clothing to church, because it's kind of just inherently, you just know it, right? It's the same with our business. You want to create an environment that's really intentional. The next part of that is in this ESIP model is the structure. So that's having the right structure that actually, and we have the saying, it's an osteopathic term, structure governs function. When we have a look at the way that the hip joint works, it's 80% of its articulated surface 80% of its surface is articulated, which means it connects about 80% of it, which gives us lots and lots of structure. Whereas if we have a look at our shoulder joint, there's only 1/3 of it is articulative surface, which means we have a lot of flexibility. What that means is that our shoulder muscles have to use a lot more work to hold our shoulder in place than our hip joint does, because the structure is really solid. Businesses are like that too. If you have a really flexible business that you just go with the flow and anything can happen, the challenge is that when you bring on someone, that is going to continue to happen. Whereas when you have standards of this is how we roll the towels, this is how we finish the room at the end of the day, this is where the towels go, this is how we clean up here, this is how we do it here, then it's easier to be able to say to a staff member who maybe isn't showing up in the way you want, okay, so we had a conversation yesterday that this is how we do it. And I noticed that the towels weren't done properly. So let's have another conversation about how this works. And it's less about you're annoying the crap out of me right now, and more about these are the standards that we have and how we actually work them out. Another thing we did at the clinic was we would have jobs for gaps. So a 5-minute job, a 10-minute job, a 15-minute job, 20-minute job, half an hour job, 45-minute job, an hour job. So for example, if someone had an hour gap that I was paying them for because our guys were employed, they actually had to write some blog posts for our website and for our social media. Now, if I got to the end of the week and I had to pay them for 3 hours that they weren't hands-on, then I would expect to see a couple of blogs from that, which meant I was getting really good standard of stuff, but I wasn't, and I was paying for it, but I wasn't expecting them to do my marketing for me because it's not their job. But it absolutely is their responsibility to be, if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean. If there's certain jobs they can do that can actually help us, whether it's cleaning or marketing or learning, but they actually had to track that and tell me and submit what they had done in those non-allocated work times because there was no money coming in. So I wanted to make sure I was making use of it. And so it meant no one was sitting on their phone because they always had a job to do.
All right. So that's the E and the S in ESIP. Could you please explain the I and the P, Alicia?
So the I and the P is about implementation and people. And the challenge is that most businesses, without being intentional, what they start to do is they have the people doing some of the work. And everything that happens in the business, the environment, the culture is dictated from where the people are at. And the challenge is that's like the tail wagging the dog, right? When this ESIP model goes from down up, then we start to see, water cooler talk and stuff happening behind the play and people on their phones and being disrespectful and things like that. When we flip it to go, this is why we do it here. This is the way we do it. This is our structure and our process for it. This is who implements it. So the right people doing the right jobs. And then the people are actually in line with that. All of a sudden our business starts to flow really well. And the goals that we want in our business makes it easier. And this is how we do it here becomes so much easier to say rather than, I don't really want to have that conversation about that phone thing again because maybe I'm just being picky. Maybe, it probably doesn't matter. It's like, no, actually it really matters because I want to have exceptional customer service, which means when someone arrives and there is a staff member at that desk, they get eye contact. We already know their name. It's on the computer. Hey, Sandra, it's so lovely to see you. Welcome. Come on in, take a seat. Sarah will be with you in a moment. And all of a sudden they have those 1%ers. They feel like they are invited and welcomed right from the start. And that can't happen if somebody is on their phone scrolling through social media instead of having that customer service focus.
Awesome. I love it. That is a great place to end here. Hopefully we've given our listeners some great food for thought and some ways to figure out when they're hiring, how they're hiring, what they should do, and go from there. So thank you so much, Alicia, for giving us all that wonderful insight today. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Adeena.
This podcast was brought to you by Coach Adeena Wagner from Clients on Repeat and Alicia Crook from Massage Champions. For more information, you can visit AdeenaWagner.com and MassageChampions.com for more secrets on the art of growing a successful spa and massage business. Thanks again for listening to our show. Please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll catch you in the next episode.